Hello, good evening, and welcome back. My name is Don Arleth, and you're watching World Talks here on TVP World. Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Andrzej Sikorski met with French Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot in Paris on Monday. The minister wrote on X that the talks with Barrot had gone well and that Polish-French cooperation was gaining momentum. This is good news for Poland and France and all of Europe, said Sikorski. And now joining us to talk about this is Andrzej Byrt, the former Polish ambassador to Germany and France. Hello, Mr. Ambassador, and thank you so much for joining us on World Talks.
Hello, nice to hear you.
Yes, now the Treaty of Nancy, teeth or talk? The Poland-France Mutual Defense Treaty had been ratified, but ratification is just paper. So what concrete military commitments, troop deployments, joint exercises, and what have you, maybe nuclear consultation mechanisms, are actually being operationalized, and where are the sticking points?
Well, the visit of our foreign minister and Deputy Prime Minister to Paris and his talks with French Minister for Europe and Foreign Affairs, Mr. Barrot, was the following step of the result of the treaty signed last year between Poland's and France's governments, and a treaty which had a very comprehensive scope concerning not only over general politics, but also the most important its element now, which is the security of our two countries, which is closely linked with the entire security of Europe as a result of the changes in the American attitudes vis-à-vis NATO, as well as their potential support for guaranteeing security of Europe in case of an aggression. What kind of an aggression could possibly or theoretically may happen, not any, so to say, theoretical one, but the only one which we are risking in reality is the aggression by the Russian Federation. And therefore, Europeans, having understood that the United States, for different reasons, which I'm not going to discuss now, will probably not have such a will not offer such a support which could theoretically be awaited from the NATO treaty, that European countries should invest much more in their own security, which means both the industrial support as well as through the network of agreements of also security in case of a hopefully only theoretical aggression by Russians on the European Union and the European NATO countries. So that was the major, I would say, subject of the negotiations or discussions in Paris. But beside of that, parallel to that, both ministers discuss, so to say, very concrete measures the both governments will be taking also by a series of regular annual consultations concerning the broad panorama of subjects which are of interest both to France and to Poland. But the first point was security guarantees through, among others, operations you quoted. Much more deeper consultations, much more deeper operation activities by Polish and French armies. Of course, in connection with all the other European allies. That's the new reality we are living in. It's a world which have, as a result of the changes of the American strategy, global strategy, Europeans have to envisage much more closer military cooperation together with its own European production of necessary defense products. And the two subjects were the main topics of the discussions in Paris.
France has its own nuclear doctrine centered around on national sovereignty, while Poland has been pushing hard for NATO nuclear sharing arrangements. Is there a genuine convergence on extending France's nuclear umbrella eastward, or is Sikorski maybe walking away with some type of symbolic language? What's your opinion? perhaps there is already a nuclear weapons present here in Poland that we don't know about.
So far not. We had a nuclear presence, but of the Soviet military apparatus when Poland was member of the Warsaw Pact. But that's the closed chapter of our history. Now, so far, there are no military nuclear instruments on our territory. But nonetheless, we've got quite a big stock of American equipment, which was deposited in Poland, but that's prepared for, would say, awkward situations which may happen in the future. So far as our discussions with France are concerned, we are reacting on the President Macron's proposal to envisage the cooperation of a few European countries under the French nuclear umbrella, but these talks are not presented publicly, which is absolutely comprehensible. They have to be kept secret. But nonetheless, when we say about this nuclear sharing à l'européenne, in the European way, so to say, they probably will mean new types of consultations, new types of training, of cooperation, maybe also in theory displacing of French military aircraft on some basis closer to the eastern flank of the NATO, which means the Polish eastern border, the one which is sharing the Poland or dividing Poland from Russia, like in this Kaliningrad region, or Belarus, which is, as a matter of fact, a military partner of Russian Federation, also in their brutal aggression on Ukraine. Therefore, we know dangers which are lying behind our frontiers next to us. And we know also the value of the efficient defense of Ukraine against Russian aggression. Therefore, France's proposal to envisage the participation in this nuclear sharing proposed by France will, of course, entail and require much deeper consultations, not only between Poland and France, but also with other European allies like Germany, like the Netherlands, and also probably with Great Britain.
It's been floated by the Russians, the Finnish president, and others that Europe should begin to open dialogue and negotiate directly with Russia to end the war in Ukraine. Could France fill that role, and how close are Warsaw and Paris on the potential objective of such talks?
Well, as a matter of fact, we were never, I would say, very supportive for the trials of President Macron to speak directly with Russian President Putin. But we understand that diplomacy, anyway, also during the war, is a medium which should be used in order to, I would say, first to slow down the military operation, but also try to find out a kind of exit from such a dramatic situation. It says our Ukrainian partners have already declared on several occasions that they'd like to discuss directly with Putin the ceasefire conditions. But Putin so far has refused to accept such proposals. So we should also envisage different variants of direct negotiations, although they would require quite deeper consultations, both with French and with German politicians, because these three major countries on the west-eastern axis of Europe are also today the three largest continental partners in terms of their conventional military power. France also have an extra value, which is not only their seat on the Security Council in the United Nations, but also their nuclear umbrella they've they've developed, and they are now offering to some of France's European partners eastward.
Yes, well, the former Chancellor Angela Merkel has been floated for this potential position, as well as the Finnish president and others like Mario Draghi. So we'll see how this evolves. Former ambassador to Germany and France, Andrzej Byrt, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you as well.
And that concludes this edition of World Talks. Thanks for joining us, and stay with us for more here on TVP World.